All right, guys, welcome back to the Alabama Recruiting Report. I am Andrew Bone, BamaInsider.com. We are a few days after Christmas, so I hope you all enjoyed a great Christmas holiday. And obviously a big weekend this weekend with the playoff down in Miami, Alabama. Heading down there against Oklahoma. So big game. I know a lot of people were down there excited. So I'm not down there. Possibly make the next trip if Alabama wins this weekend, but not down there. Kyle Henderson and Tony Sakalas are down there covering it for Bama Insider. So be sure to follow those guys and follow all of our coverage on BamaInsider.com. We're a week, I guess about 9 days since National Signing Day. It was obviously a big day for Alabama a couple weeks ago, and I updated everyone, after the big day last Wednesday, kind of let you guys know exactly where things stood with Alabama. I would say the number one recruiting class in the country, heading into the next signing period. What's exactly going to happen between now and then? We'll probably know a few things here pretty soon in terms of some decisions coming up. And then we'll kind of find out, exactly where Alabama's going to end up, landing come February. Will they have the top class in the country? I certainly believe they've got a great chance to be there in the end. Considering the amount of players that are still out there, and keep in mind with Rivals.com, and I keep seeing people say, well, this team's got this many spots left. This team's got this many spots left. Well, on Rivals.com, you only count the top 20 commitments in each class. So there's a real good chance that even some of the guys, not saying these guys don't count, but some of the guys that are rated like 3 stars in Alabama's class, when it comes down to the final rankings, they may end up not counting when Alabama's trying to have that number one overall recruiting class. So Alabama adds some 4 or 5 more 4-star guys. Those are the guys that are counted, not the guys who were rated as 3 stars. So what's happening right now with Alabama's recruiting class? There's some big decisions that are coming up, and I'm going to talk about those because there's 2 guys that are going to be announcing a decision on January the 5th. That I think Alabama fans really need to pay very close attention to, on that day. And we'll talk about those guys. I'm going to go over kind of position by position, answer a few questions. We won't be in here long because, as we all know, 23 signees last week, which means there's not a lot of spots left. So not a lot of kids to talk about, but, there's certainly some players to talk about. All right, so what's going to happen between now and February? And I'm going to start off on the offensive side of the ball because there's not really a lot of guys that we're going to be talking about. So you look at the quarterback situation, completely finished. Alabama's not taking a third quarterback in this class. They've got Talia and Paul Tyson, so they're finished there. Running back position, obviously the big get, Trey Sanders on the early signing period, National Signing Day. They got him. And then, Keelan Robinson. Now, there's a lot of talk that Keelan may have secretly signed, but as far as I know, Alabama's still treating it like he hasn't signed. So I don't know if that means that he really hasn't signed or whatever it may be. But as far as I know, still recruiting him, but still also recruiting some other running backs. And from what I've been told, Alabama's only signing 2 running backs. So if they get Trey Sanders, they get Keelan Robinson to stick on board, they're done. It's not like they're going after and signing another kid outside of those 2 guys. Now, one kid who's still being recruited by Alabama is DeAndre Glass, 4-star running back out of Katy High School in Texas. He's still getting a lot of interest from Alabama, which kind of signifies to me that Keelan Robinson did not secretly sign. So if a running back still being recruited by Alabama, just in case Keelan Robinson ends up going elsewhere, that kind of means Keelan Robinson didn't sign. So that's something that I'm looking at right now, something a lot of people probably should take notice of. But obviously we'll find out more in the next month or so, maybe probably in the next few weeks if Keelan Robinson does start taking official visits elsewhere. Wide receiver, tight end wise. Now I'm hearing that Alabama's still kind of interested in possibly adding a tight end wide receiver type guy in this class. Is there anybody still out there? Nobody that Alabama's been heavily recruiting, but I have been told that they're going to look around, see who's out there, maybe bring in somebody for an official visit next month, and then kind of go from there. Just no decisions yet. Nobody that's really like, oh my gosh, they've got to go get this guy. He's a top priority target. Nobody like that just yet. Offensive line wise, I think Alabama's pretty much done. We've talked about Darnell Wright, the 5-star offensive tackle, number 1 offensive tackle in the country for such a long time, linked to Alabama. But Alabama signed 5 offensive linemen, including Evan Neal on signing day. It's just going to be tough for Alabama to add another offensive lineman in this class. Numbers are extremely tight. Will Darnell Wright possibly still come in for an official visit? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still possible. And I think a lot depends on what happens in the overall numbers. Let's say Alabama misses on their top remaining defensive tackles or, a couple linebackers. There may be a spot still available. They may still try to push to get the best available player rather than getting another offensive lineman. But right now, I think they're completely full at the offensive line position. We'll see what happens in terms of best available down the road. All right, so that's a quick look on the offensive side of the ball. Going to hit y'all up, let y'all know everything about the defensive side because that's where all these top remaining targets really remain is on the defensive side. And I'm going to talk about the guys who are committing in the next, really in the next week, and that is Marcus Banks and Chris Bogle. So Chris Bogle, elite edge rusher type guy out of South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. Cardinal Gibbons High School. And we talked about this kid for a long time. And if you guys are members of BamaInsider.com, I've been talking about these guys since June. I've been saying Chris Bogle, Kayvon Thibodeau, Nolan Smith were always Alabama's top 3 guys at this edge rusher position. And Alabama really just wanted to sign one of them. Really kind of only had room for one, to be honest. Would they have taken 2? Probably so. But really, one has always kind of been a top priority. Now, they do have Kevin Harris, who signed with them last week. So that's one edge rusher. So they do have an edge rusher in this class, but they certainly like to add another guy. Chris Bogle, certainly a guy that they like a lot. Joe Panunzio has been recruiting him for a very long time. And Chris Bogle told me probably, I guess, about a month and a half ago when I talked to him. The coach Panunzio has been recruiting him for a couple years now, so he's always really enjoyed him. And I think with the season that Miami had, the struggles they've had, I think it really kind of opened up the door more for Alabama in terms of landing him because everyone just assumed he was going to Miami. But as of right now, if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say Alabama for Chris Bogle. I think Alabama's done a great job recruiting him. They're in need of some edge rushers. He's announcing on January the 5th. So keep an eye on there. I do think it's between Alabama and Miami. Miami's certainly going to be pushing for him even more so because of their struggles. And then you got Manny Diaz, the defensive coordinator from Miami, leaving and taking the job at Temple. So he's going to be gone. So I think that really opens up the door more for Alabama for Chris Bogle. So watch out for that commitment on January the 5th at the All-American Bowl on I believe it's on NBC. Another big-time player that's announcing at that game that, we weren't real sure what was going to happen with the defensive back position after some of these guys committed, especially after Jordan Battle announced for Alabama on signing day. Excuse me. I thought that Alabama could possibly be done at the defensive back position. And, I know that we saw Dax Hill flip from Alabama back to Michigan. That really didn't change anything, but in terms of Alabama still trying to get another defensive back, yeah, they still want one. And I say they want one. I think they want one particular guy. If they don't get that guy, I don't think it really matters. So Marcus Banks, 4-star defensive back out of Spring, Texas, been heavily looking at Alabama for a long time. He committed to LSU during the summer, backed off from that commitment to LSU. I think it was early November. He had taken official visits to Alabama and to Texas A&M. Just decided that he wanted to reopen things. And he's taken some other visits. He's visited Florida. He's visited Florida State. His father played at Florida State. But I think it comes down between 2 schools. I think it's Alabama and Texas A&M. And Alabama really only has one true cornerback in this class, and that's Jeffrey Carter, another kid from the Lone Star State. So Alabama's done a real good job recruiting the state of Texas, and so has Texas A&M. A&M's been able to keep the top prospects home, but I think Alabama's got a really, really good chance with Marcus Banks. Hadn't made a final prediction just yet on Banks. I still think it's between those two schools. Starting to lean a little bit more towards Alabama in the last few days, but we'll make a final prediction when we get a little bit closer to his announcement. Those are some of the big names that are going to be announcing, within the next week. So those are the ones I wanted to touch on real quick. Defensive line. Alabama really trying to sign 2 more guys on the defensive line to try to get 6 total in the class. Now, they have Byron Young, who's committed. Byron Young is taking some official visits next month. So we're going to see him go to Florida. We're going to see him go to Ole Miss, possibly Mississippi State, possibly LSU. He's talking about maybe an official visit to Ohio State. So he hasn't set up all those official visits yet. I think Ole Miss is set for maybe that January the 25th visit, but I think that's about it. And he's going to get those other visits set. So obviously Alabama still wants to keep him on board. We'll see what happens. Obviously he's already taken his official visit to Alabama. So, that's probably the one negative for Alabama is he's already been there and he's going to visit all these other schools in the next months, but Alabama's still pushing very hard to keep him on board. Obviously, the big name guy that we've talked about for such a long time, Ishmael Sopsher, 5-star defensive tackle out of Amite, Louisiana. Number 1 defensive lineman in the country. Big time target for Alabama, big time target for LSU, big time target for a lot of schools. I mean, took an official visit to Oregon. He's going to get to Texas A&M. Those are kind of the schools fighting hard for him. Top 2 of Alabama and LSU. A lot of people have assumed that Alabama's the favorite for him, but I still think that it's a lot can change. I mean, a lot can change, especially with his brother, trying to get in school somewhere, and some schools making some promises to him that they can get him in, even though he dropped out of junior college earlier this year. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. But I mean, it's a long way from being over. I certainly wouldn't say Alabama's in the driver's seat. Nobody else is challenging them at all, because I certainly think that LSU and A&M, I'd watch out for A&M as well there. But end of the day, it's Alabama or LSU for Sopsher, in my opinion. Now, you've got some other defensive linemen who are still out there. You got Nathan Pickering, 4-star D lineman from Mississippi, who's committed to Mississippi State. He's going to be visiting Alabama on January the 11th. Jaquez Sorrells out of Largo High School in Florida is going to visit Alabama sometime in January. Has had a top 2 of Alabama and South Carolina for a very long time. And then there was one other defensive lineman, Jared Hunt. I think it's Jared Harrison Hunt out of New York. Ends up, one of those guys that Alabama spotted kind of late. Doesn't have a committable offer just yet. I think it's going to take some of these guys going elsewhere. But Coach Kulikowski, Nick Saban, very interested in him. I think he's going to visit on January it's either the 11th or the 18th. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but obviously we'll update everyone on that on BamaInsider.com. So those are kind of the main defensive linemen. I mean, that's 5 defensive linemen right there. Alabama trying to get 2 of them on board in February. Now, is it possible that Alabama takes 7 defensive linemen? I think the only way that we see that happen is if they end up taking best available. If they have a spot remaining, they take best available, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But numbers are obviously very tight. They're just trying to get their top remaining guys on board and go from there. Now, I guess probably the final top prospect that I'm going to talk about, Henry To'oTo'o. The Rivals 100 linebacker out of California, going to be making a decision on January the 19th. I think he's going to try to get into Alabama maybe on the 11th, January the 11th. Sounds like it's a top 2. It seems like it's been a top 2 for the last several months between Alabama and Tennessee. Still really like Alabama's chances there. Tosh Lupoi done a tremendous job recruiting him. Tosh Lupoi actually went to De La Salle High School. So there's a connection there, and I think Alabama's done a terrific job recruiting Henry To'oTo'o. And I mentioned this a while back. we saw Nakobe Dean end up committing to Georgia instead of Alabama, and I told everyone this. I said, listen, Alabama's good. They've been trying to sign the best available top remaining targets, and Alabama's hit on the inside linebacker position. They got Christian Harris and Shane Lee. Shane Lee, the number 2 inside linebacker in the country. So right now it's just trying to get the best available player. If they could have gotten Nakobe Dean, great. But didn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, we've missed on this position. But Henry To'oTo'o, definitely want him. He's one of the best available guys remaining on the board, so they want to get him. Now, if they missed on him, and this is why I say this, talk about best remaining guys, because if they miss on him, they're not going after another inside linebacker. They're just going to try to go get somebody else at another position. It's not like, hey, we need another inside linebacker. But Henry To'oTo'o, definitely a big time player, a guy that could come in and definitely make an impact. So we'll keep an eye on that, on his decision on January the 19th at the Polynesian Bowl. I believe that's on the CBS Sports Network. So some big decisions coming up in the month of January. A lot of these other kids, these defensive linemen, going to be announcing on I think a little bit closer to signing day. But those are really the top remaining guys on Alabama's recruiting board. I am going to take a few questions here for you guys. Then we'll get out of here. Just don't want to keep you guys too long. I know everybody on this feed's dying to get back and watching the Auburn-Purdue game. Let's see here. How is the defensive class? Well, I think the defensive class is excellent. I mean, you look at, from the defensive line to the linebackers to the defensive backs, it's an incredible class. And if you go in there and you possibly add a couple more defensive linemen, you add another linebacker, you add another defensive back. I mean, it could be Nick Saban's best defensive class since he's been at Alabama, which is saying a lot. Do I think that Raekwon Davis will return for his senior season? I'm not sure. I think we'll have to just wait. I think a lot depends on how these guys perform in the Oklahoma game. If they win against Oklahoma, how they perform in the national championship game. Because obviously, a lot of NFL scouts watching a lot of these guys, and Raekwon Davis, Mack Wilson, Irv Smith, Josh Jacobs. There's a lot of guys who could really improve their draft stock during the bowl season. Like, well, it's really strong. Number 1 recruiting class in the country right now for 2020. I think 11 overall commitments. So very strong class, and we'll see how the rest of the way goes. But I can't see any more 2020 guys jumping on board between now and signing day. I think we'll see most of the focus on the 2019 guys, and then once we get past 2019, now we may, Alabama's sometimes has a junior day before signing day. So we'll see if they end up having a junior day. Sometimes it's after signing day. So we'll see what they end up doing. It's usually around, I think, around the 20th or something like that. So maybe that January 18th, maybe January 25th, Alabama ends up having a junior day. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's see. Another inside linebacker would be good because Mack Wilson will turn pro. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, Henry To'oTo'o is certainly a big target for them. I just, because of the overall numbers, I think they feel pretty good where they stand at inside linebacker. They just, they would absolutely love to have Henry To'oTo'o, but I just cannot see them going after another one. But I think we'll wait and see. Especially when these guys, let's say after these bowl games, they decide to make their announcements if they're going to turn pro or not. Then that may give Alabama some, a little bit better of an idea if they want to go after another inside linebacker or maybe another player at another position. Let's see. Any news on Henry To'oTo'o? Like I said, announcing on January the 19th. I think it's Alabama or Tennessee, but I'd still give the edge to Alabama right there. All right. Do I think K-Ho is starting next year? He's going to have an opportunity. I can't say whether or not he's going to start for sure. I really like his ability. Very athletic and good inside linebacker. But obviously we'll wait and see if Mack comes back next year. Because if Mack Wilson comes back, we probably won't see him starting. How many players will be leaving for the draft and transferring schools? Can't answer that. I mean, obviously, we'll know more, like I said, after the bowl season, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right. Will Alabama lose Christian Williams, a four-star defensive back out of Daphne? I think they will. I don't think he did himself any favors by waiting to sign. He's going to take an official visit to LSU on January the 11th. I think he said he's going to take an official visit to Alabama on January the 25th. But let's just as of right now, I probably lean towards him ending up at LSU, instead of Alabama. Let's see. Have any defensive tackles, graduate transfer defensive tackles emerged? Hadn't heard of any yet. As Alabama looking for some, yes. We will probably know more. I hate to keep saying we'll know more after the bowl season, but that's really the truth. I mean, these coaches are so focused on the game against Oklahoma right now. They got through signing day. Now, have they sat down and have they talked about who the top priorities are in terms of the top remaining targets in the 2019 class? Yes, but I think they'll wait until after bowl season and sit down and say, all right, these are the best defensive tackle graduate transfers that we can have a chance to get. Now, they may know some names already, but I don't know if any discussions have been made just yet. So, they're going to definitely go after some, and that's something that we know for sure. Does Alabama have a chance with Raheem Jarrett, the five-star wide receiver out of St. John's College in Maryland? Yeah, I definitely think Alabama's. He put out maybe a top 6, top 7 the other day. I think Alabama's probably in his top 3. Now, you got to look at this. Alabama's done a great job of showcasing its wide receivers. In the last year, Josh Gaddis, an elite wide receivers coach. I think a lot of people probably watch and see what happens with Josh Gaddis, because there was a lot of rumors and speculation that he might leave Alabama for a head coaching position or an OC position somewhere. So that could possibly have an effect on some of these recruits. Now, let's say Keelan Robinson ends up sticking with Alabama. That's obviously a big boost for the Crimson Tide there to try to get Raheem Jarrett in the 2020 class. But long way to go there. But he likes Alabama. He's visited Alabama a couple times, and so there's definitely some interest. Let's see. Do I think we have a chance with Julian Fleming? Excuse me, another 5-star wide receiver out of Pennsylvania. I do. I think Alabama's in it, but I think a lot of it, kind of like with Raheem Jarrett, is Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis has been recruiting Julian Fleming for a long time. It's from the area. So, that's something that we'll continue to watch. He's not going to make a decision anytime soon. Now, his quarterback, 2019 quarterback, Stone Hollenbach, actually signed with Alabama as a preferred walk-on. So, I think that helps Alabama a little bit there. But, a long way to go with guys like Julian Fleming and Raheem Jarrett. And a lot of people keep asking me about 2020 guys. Obviously, Alabama's got a great 2020 class, but some of these big-time guys like Raheem Jarrett and Savell Smalls and Justin Flo and Zachary Evans, all these big names that are top 20 type players in the 2020 class, these guys aren't deciding anytime soon. These guys are taking it all the way until after the spring, maybe in the summer, or maybe even after their senior season. So a lot of these guys aren't going to be deciding soon. So we can easily say Alabama's in the race because they are. And a lot of these guys have Alabama as their top, in their top 5, and they're going to take official visits there. But, in terms of saying, yes, I think Alabama's going to sign this guy, we're not there yet on really any of these top 2020 guys just yet. We just think that Alabama's certainly in the race, and we'll know a little bit more down the road. Let's see. Isn't Josh the assistant offensive coordinator? He is. But, I think he's certainly probably entertained some, and gotten a lot of interest as being the not a co-offensive coordinator. I think he's gotten some interest as just being the sole offense coordinator for a lot of different a lot of different schools. But I'm not saying he's leaving at all. I mean, don't get me wrong there. I'm just saying that he's getting a lot of interest because of the way he has helped produce these wide receivers at Alabama. He's going to continue to get interest. A lot of these coaches are. So, a lot of these coaches have great relationships with these kids. That's why I just say, hey, we've got to be patient. Got to wait. Got to watch and see how everything unfolds, and then kind of go from there. Bogle thoughts. Chris Bogle. Talked about him a little bit earlier today. I still think Alabama's. I think they're in great shape. I do think it's between Alabama and Miami. I do think. Everybody says, why would someone want to go to Miami? Look at their program. They just got worked by Wisconsin. It just doesn't look good down there. But this program's certainly trying to sell these, especially these local kids on playing time and trying to get their program back to prominence. And with Chris Bogle, still think Alabama is. I think they got the edge there, but we'll know here on January the 5th. What is the current status on getting Ishmael Sopsher? I mentioned this earlier, but still think I think it's close. I mean, I think it's Alabama, LSU, and a lot's going to depend on his brother. If somebody can really promise him, make a promise, and can get him into school, that's going to be a big factor for him. So we'll have to wait and see how things unfold in the next month. I think Alabama's the favorite for Sopsher, but he's definitely going to wait and see what happens with if anybody can get his brother in school. If they can, that certainly is a game changer. Let's see. What about a punter and a kicker? Alabama just signed Will Richard to the 2019 recruiting class. Going to be enrolling on January the 5th. The running joke is Alabama always signs the number one kicker. By the time they leave Alabama, they're not the number one kicker. I think that's going to be different. I really like this kid a lot. I think he's going to be a big-time player. And I think Alabama's really excited about him as well. If Alabama misses on Banks and Williams and Williams decides to go elsewhere, will Alabama call it a day on DB front? Yes. I don't think they'll do anything else there, regardless of what happens with Christian Williams or if Marcus Banks jumps on board. They're really happy. But if he doesn't jump on board, let's say he goes to A&M, they're not going to go back. Going to LSU. Don't see them going after another safety. So I do think they'll be done there. Do I think Alabama will push for George Pickens? We'll see. Like I've mentioned this on Bama Insider last week. I said Alabama is still trying to, they're looking around for another receiver. They're looking, and it's a receiver, tight end type guy. Seeing who's still out there, seeing who will definitely qualify, if anybody's very high quality out there. And I think they're going to continue to, monitor George Pickens. But as of right now, you just don't see. I don't see him in Alabama's class, and we'll see if he ends up officially visiting. If things change there, we'll be sure to update everyone. All right. Any news on the suspended players? Not on my end. I mean, you're probably going to have to talk to Kyle and Tony about that. I hadn't really been paying much attention. Obviously, I know these guys were suspended and sent home. They're not going to be playing. It's an NCAA violation from what, I'm reading the same reports you guys are. So obviously that's tough for them. And an NCAA violation could possibly go all the way throughout the whole season next year. You just don't know. And we'll have to wait and see how that goes. That's going to be it for today, guys. Thanks for joining. Hope you all enjoy the Orange Bowl tomorrow. We'll try to jump back on here in the next week or so, especially after these All-American games, see what's all transpired, see if Alabama's able to get, guys like Chris Bogle, Marcus Banks on board, and how that may, shape the rest of the recruiting class. But just wanted to update you guys today on where things stand. So Happy New Year to y'all. I hope you all enjoyed a great holiday season so far, and enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll see you next time. Thanks.